I was expecting news on Election Day, but not this news. Both Kennywood and Idlewild dropped bombshells to amusement park fans. Kennywood announced they were removing 4 rides. This West Mifflin Park announced that they were removing the one-of-a-kind Kangaroo, the rare Bayern Kurve, the beloved Volcano Enterprise, and the classic Paratrooper. But not to be outdone, Idlewild and Ligonier announced that they were removing 3 attractions themselves: the Ferris Wheel, the Rainbow Wheel Kiddie Ferris Wheel, and the Bubbling Springs Ball Pit in the Jumpin Jungle. This video will give my thoughts on the removed attractions, discuss why this is happening, and discuss what may replace them. And I think this announcement is disappointing for 3 reasons. 1, it continues the trend of Kennywood in particular and Idlewild phasing out older rides. 2, so many of their rides were announced that they were being removed simultaneously. 3, this was announced after the 2020 season concluded, so fans of these classic attractions were unable to get their final rides in them. For example, look at how Kings Island retired Firehawk and Vortex in recent years. Kings Island gave ample notice to these attractions being closed so fans could get their last rides in them. For Kennywood, Kangaroo was the one that stung the most for me. This attraction spun riders around in a circle and launched their vehicles off a ramp. This resulted in some great laterals and fun pops of airtime. It was not only one of my favorite flats at Kennywood, but it was one of my favorite flats anywhere. Bayern Kurve is a variant on your typical Himalaya. This ride feels quite fast, especially when the iconic horn blares at the end of the ride. Plus, this ride offered some great laterals. Volcano was your typical Enterprise, which is becoming more and more rare. There's something inherently enjoyable inverting with absolutely no restraint. You're held completely in place by this ride's forces. Paratrooper is a ride that I admittedly never rode at Kennywood, but I have ridden the same ride at countless other parks like Knoebels and Quasi. It's a fun spinning ride that's most effective when it offers near misses with the trees, and Kennywood's version appeared to do this. At Idlewild, the only ride that I personally rode that's being removed is the Ferris Wheel. This ride didn't give the best views because it was blocked by the park's dense collection of trees, but it was still neat because it was one of the rare Eli Bridge Ferris Wheel models. But why are these attractions being removed? Maintenance. The removal of these rides continues a trend of Palace Entertainment, the US subdivision of Parques Reunidos, of removing classic attractions due to rising maintenance costs. Kennywood and Idlewild are owned by Palace Entertainment, and the same goes for several other US parks like Dutch Wonderland, Lake Compounce, and Storyland. One of the most cited reasons why Kennywood often removes attractions is due to how landlocked the park is. And I agree, the park is definitely boxed in, so it's not easy to add new attractions without sacrificing an older one. However, parks like Groenland have proven time and time again creativity can get you around this issue. The primary reason Palace has been removing a majority of their attractions lately is due to rising maintenance costs, and the park deciding the investment to fix them is no longer worth it. While it is sad to see the classic rides from Kennywood leave, the manufacturers who made these attractions have all gone out of business, so it can't be easy to get spare parts. Just look at how many other parks like Canopy Lake Park have removed their paratroopers, or parks like Cedar Point have removed their Enterprise. It would be especially upsetting if these rides are not replaced. Fortunately, Kennywood has replaced their removed attractions more often than not with something new. After 2009, Kennywood removed the Turnpike, the gas-powered antique car ride. But that ride was replaced the following year by the Premier Rides launched roller coaster in Skyrocket. That same year also saw King Kahuna, the Top Spin, get removed, but unfortunately that ride was not replaced by a new addition. The 2011 season was the last for Pitfall, the awesome Intamin drop tower overlooking the ravine, and this ride was replaced the following year by Black Widow, the giant Zamberla Frisbee. The 2017 season was the final one for the Logjammer, the classic Arrow Log Flume. That ride was replaced in 2019 by Steel Curtain, the hypercoaster from S&S that took the US inversion record. So based off this trend, it does seem more likely than not that Kennywood will eventually replace these attractions with something new. It's just a question of when and what. And the park is in tune to its history despite what all the removals may suggest. Because the park recently admitted their mistake with Garfield's Nightmare and transformed their classic boat ride back into the old mill for the 2020 season. And they also sell more merchandise of their retired attractions than their current ones, so they know their fans love their old rides. Now, none of these rides that are being removed from Kennywood take up large footprints, so when these rides are replaced, I expect them to receive new flat rides. Kennywood could go for spiritual successors to the rides by adding Zamperla Endeavors or Flying Bob-style Himalaya rides, or they could add something entirely new. I'm hoping at least one of these rides is replaced by a drop tower because I sorely miss Pitfall, but Kennywood could go in several different directions here. Idlewild has been a bit slower to replace the removed attractions. 2013 saw the removal of both the classic Caterpillar and the Dizzy Lizzie's Madhouse. 2015 saw the classic Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood trolley ride transformed into Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, but it felt like a budget conversion. And now you have these 3 rides and attractions leaving the park. Again, these rides don't take up much of a footprint, so I expect Idlewild to get flat rides when they are replaced. The final question is whether or not any of these attractions will be rescued. The most likely candidate I've heard floated is Knoebels because of this park's love of classic attractions. It's just 4 hours down the road, and any of Kennywood's removed attractions would fit in quite nicely at Knoebels, outside of the Paratrooper that Knoebels already has. And I'd love to see many of these rides saved, as they could be economical additions for CapEx-strapped parks if they're willing to pay the maintenance costs up front to get them going, as these could be marketed as new additions for these parks. Look at Cedar Fair's strategy in recent years, buying old flat rides from Europe and reinstalling them as new additions to their US parks. While it definitely does sting to lose classic attractions, especially since many of the Kennywood ones are exceedingly rare, the reality is that parks are suffering after the 2020 season due to the pandemic, and they're looking to cut costs any way possible. And removing old rides is one way to do this. I am also very interested to see if Palace Entertainment's other US parks also announce some ride removals in the next few days, weeks, or months. Lake Compounce, like Kennywood, has thankfully been good about replacing the removed attractions with new ones more often than not. In 2015, the park lost their Enterprise, but it was replaced by the Phobia Fear Coaster. In 2017, the park lost their scenic half-hour-long Compounce Mountain Sky Ride, although that was due to safety concerns rather than maintenance issues. And in 2019, the park closed the Lights Out Body Slide and is being replaced by the Venus Vortex for the 2021 season. Meanwhile, both Dutch Wonderland and Storyland have lost some of their classic boat attractions over the past few years. So these parks aren't immune to ride removals either. What are your thoughts on these ride removals from Kennywood and Idlewild? Are you a fan of these rides? What are your thoughts on the direction these parks are going in? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you gave it a like and considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.